I feel like I was a cameraman in this movie. By me saying that, when I was watching this movie, I felt as if I was in this same universe. I felt as if I was with these same characters in the same biker gang called the Vandals. I felt as if I was actually taken back to the 70s or the 80s when this was filmed. I felt that I was a part of these people. Despite the movie being based off of like real people, and obviously they took like liberties and they skewed some of the things that actually happened, you know, and obviously like with any movie like that, there's gonna be some changes and shit, but just in my opinion, I liked how realistic it felt, like not in the terms of being based on a true story, but in terms of the settings and how people interacted with each other, how places felt, how people acted, how like everyone interacted with each other. I liked how realistic it was. The reason why I like this movie is because it shows you the lives of being in a biker gang. It shows you what they do on a day-to-day basis, how they act, what they laugh about, what they cry about, what they hate about. It shows a lot, and in my opinion, I do think this movie is pretty good. I do think it's a very good movie in showing you like the beginning process of like a woman falling in love with a biker gang member, showing the viewers like, okay, this is not gonna be all peaches and rainbows just yet. There's gonna be hardships, there's gonna be things that will go through together. And I like that part of the movie. I also liked how everybody in this movie was not perfect. Like starting off with Austin Butler, who played Benny. Like Benny was the main character, but in my opinion, I think there were like 3 main characters, and I'll get to that later. But Benny, he is this cool, nonchalant biker gang member of the Vandals. You know, he's kind of like the second in command under Johnny. You know, everybody respects him and everybody kind of fears him as well when he's together. But when he's by himself, like in the first scenes of the movie, we see Benny get his ass beat for wearing, I guess, the wrong colors in that neighborhood. This scene was actually shown as to be later in the movie, kind of near the end, but the movie is actually narrated by Kathy, who's played by Jodie Comer. So the movie is narrated by Kathy, who's played by Jodie Comer, and she describes her first interaction with Benny. And she went to this bar, this biker gang bar, and man, there's a lot of creeps in this movie because the first scene where we see Kathy, she meets her friend at the bar, but as she's meeting her friend, a lot of these biker gang members are all just like staring at her, or laughing, or leering, or like, you know, just like eyeing her down and shit. Then we see Johnny. Johnny comes, like he's sitting down, you know, he's nonchalant sitting down. Kathy just narrates like she's just scared. She's very scared in this biker gang place. She really wanted to go home until she met Benny, aka Benny walked to her and sat down next to her, you know, like in a nonchalant, cool way, and she really liked it. So then Kathy, you know, she wanted to leave, and then when she was leaving, the biker gang members, I ain't gonna lie, the bikers felt creepy when they followed Kathy out of the bar, but Benny simultaneously left as well. She now rode with Benny, and as Benny was riding with Kathy, the bikers started to follow them not too long after, but she felt safe with Benny, you know, she felt safe with him. When Benny dropped her off, you know, at the crib, this part is why I say that not everybody in this movie are good people, because Kathy in the movie, when she was narrating and when she was being interviewed by the interviewer, she kept on saying how she's like, the people that she hangs around with are like slobs or sloppy, they're bums, they're this, they're that, while Kathy herself isn't morally good, because we see Kathy when she goes into her home, she has a husband, you know what I mean? She has a husband there, and she comes back like at 4 a.m. and the husband was like, hey, where have you been at, you know? And she just walks in. So then the husband, you know, he's implied to think that, yo, this girl is cheating, because Benny was staying there the whole night. Then when the husband left for work the day after, Benny was still there. So when the husband pulled back in my opinion, I could see where the husband's frustrations were, because you don't know this guy. He dropped off your wife. He's still staying outside. So the husband, he left. He just packed his bags and left. And in my opinion, the husband, was a little bit right, because Kathy, right after that, fell in love with Benny. Then 5 weeks later, they got married, and now she's a part of the biker gang. Well, not necessarily, because since she's the wife of Benny, she kind of is a part of the gang now. So we meet all these new characters. We see Johnny, Kathy talking about Johnny, how he's the leader of the gang. Johnny, in my opinion, he's one of my favorite characters, despite him being morally iffy at times as well. And that ties back into what I was saying earlier in the video, because Johnny, I like his character because when he talks, he says a lot by saying little. Like, I like how every time you ask him what's wrong, he just says nothing. He's funny without even trying to be funny, and like, he's a funny guy. And I like how his thing of like, if you challenge him, because Kathy was saying that this fat guy, this fat biker gang member, one time he didn't like what Johnny was doing a bit, because he wanted to expand the gang, which will be what would fuck up the gang later. But he wanted to expand the gang, and Johnny was like, hey, all right, you want to challenge me? Is it fists or knives? I'm like, I like that, because like, it's so like simple and nonchalant, but like, it shows how Johnny like carries himself, So then that fat biker guy gets his finger broken when he challenged Johnny, and I ain't gonna lie, that shit was funny as fuck. And as the movie goes on, we see a lot of people, and I ain't gonna lie, a lot of great actors are in this movie, like Michael Shannon playing Zipco, Norman Reedus playing Funny Sonny when Funny Sonny came, and like, he was pretty creepy though, I ain't gonna lie, his teeth was fucked up. Then we see like a lot of other actors are in this movie, and actresses, and I'm like, damn, like, this movie just is kind of packed. But as the movie goes on, we see the expansion of the biker gang, and we see the young guys are getting too reckless, they're getting too out of hand. A character, Brucey, who's played by Damon Harriman, he later dies. He's one of like the also right hand man, and the young guys are just going too crazy. So we now eventually see all shit start to hit the fan when Cockroach, who's played by Emery Cohen, Cockroach, he wants to leave the gang. But these young guys, they're not really young, but like the new guys in the gang, they beat him up, they jump him, they break his ribs and all that. But the fucked up part that happened in that house was when Kathy, she was in the house as well with Benny. So when Cockroach got jumped, Benny left the house to get Cockroach to a hospital. And these bikers, they attempted to rape Kathy. I was like, what the fuck? These niggas are weird. Like, one, why the fuck are you gonna rape her, you weirdo? You know what I mean? You're just a ditty right now. And two, bro, why would you try to do that to Benny's girl? And Benny's like the right hand man. But also, this scene kind of plays into the theme that I was saying with this movie, that everybody in this movie are not good, they're not morally just. And I already talked about Kathy. I'll talk about Johnny, because Johnny, fortunately, when Johnny saw what was happening, he stopped it. But unfortunately, Johnny didn't beat up the bikers or anything. He didn't beat up those rapists that tried to rape Kathy. He just basically let them go scot-free. So that's kind of why, he's not really that morally good, because he should have beat their asses. That just, it wasn't right. Which caused Benny to like, I ain't gonna like to leave, because days later, Kathy told Benny this, and she was crying telling him this, but he thought about it for a while. He kind of rejected her feelings for a while, which was kind of messed up. But eventually, when Johnny and Benny, quote unquote, handled Cockroach by going into his crib, by shooting him in the leg, and by telling him to never show his face back in Chicago, Benny left Johnny, because Johnny, throughout the movie and at this moment, was trying to always get Benny to be his successor when Johnny eventually retires. And at this moment, Benny finally said no, because throughout the movie as well, Benny was saying no. So when Johnny took this moment to now asks Benny to be a successor, Benny just said, no, that's never gonna be me. So Benny was like, bro, like, so this is what we are now? Like, are we doing this to Cockroach now? Why are we shooting him? Why didn't you protect Kathy? Then he just drives away and leaves for a whole year. He even leaves Kathy as well, but he eventually comes back to her a year later when Johnny eventually dies. And when Benny left, man, a lot of shit fucking changed. The new guys were wilding out, bro. Because this new guy, this kid throughout the movie, at first I thought he was like a side story, because this kid, he was like a 20-year-old man who left his parents' house because they were dysfunctional. And when he left, he wanted to be in the Bikers gang. He wanted to join the Vandals. Johnny declined him. He tried to stab and kill Johnny. Johnny knocked him out. Sometime later, this kid, he now becomes a member of the Vandals from a different chapter, and he comes back to Johnny to challenge him. And when Johnny said fists or knives, this nigga said knives. But bro, this nigga was a dickhead, bro. I swear to God, this nigga's a dickhead. Because when it was a time to fight with the knives, Johnny was prepared with the knives. This nigga came with a fucking revolver and shot him, bro. And then Kathy was narrating, and she now said, this is when the biker gang turned from like a club to like a real full-on gang with prostitution, with robberies, with extortion, with murder, because of the young guys. And I'm like, oh, it makes sense, man. Like, most gangs in a lot of cities, whether you're bikers, whether you're like street gangs, whether you're, you know, all these other gangs and shit, the old generation are usually more calmer, but the new niggas, the new people in the new generation are more ruthless, they're more reckless, and they're more trigger happy. So I like that aspect because it was realistic. It showed that gangs don't have happy endings, they get nightmarish endings, man. So that made me really like this movie. You know, the movie, not everybody's perfect, not everybody's a good people, not everybody has good intentions. It's just realistic in my opinion, and I like this movie, man. Like, I'm seeing the reviews on so far all across the board. It's pretty good. It's favorable. It's 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb, and 73% on Metacritic. I agree with that. I like the movie, and I think y'all should watch it too, man. But that's the end of it on my piece.